Welcome to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we have something a little bit different, but not drastically different. So this is actually a sponsored video. Very cool. We're going to be talking about Infamy, and they do run fantasy leagues for Siege, but also for some other games. So, okay, what is Infamy? Infamy is a free-to-play fantasy system currently around professional Rainbow Six Siege, Valorant, and Overwatch. So not just Siege. If you're interested in Valorant or Overwatch, check them out for that as well. So what you do is pick a team of pros that you think will perform the best over the course of an event. The event we're going to be talking about today is the Berlin Major, coming up in, I believe, just 5 days. So make sure you get your teams in quickly. Each pro is their own price, and your team's total cost cannot exceed the given tournament salary. The salary for this event is going to be $100. It may be a different number for other events, but again, $100 for this one. The team whose pros score the most Infamy points, which we'll talk about how scoring works in a minute, the team that gets the most at the end of the competition wins. To join a tournament, join the Infamy Discord. The link will be below in the description. Also, the link to this spreadsheet where you can check everything out will be in the description. Okay, so the actual rules, so I went over most of it, but let's just go over it one more time. $100 salaries to pick 5 players. The only restriction you have is to adhere to the salary cap. You can spend up to $100, but no more. It doesn't matter if any players are from the same region, same team, same group, play the same roles, doesn't matter, just the salary cap. And there is no reward for not spending your whole $100. So you don't have to. You can spend 90, you can spend 99, 100, whatever, but you don't get any bonus for not spending the full 100. And 2 of your pros you'll assign a role to get a special multiplier for them: entry role and support role. So support just gives you a 1.5 times multiplier to any plants that they get, and entry a 1.5 times multiplier to their first kill and first death stats. So it could magnify a bad thing, but as you'll see in a minute, you get a lot more points for kills and entry kills than you do for their corresponding deaths. So probably you just want to give that to a player that you think will be involved in a ton of entry engagements, and it's just a little bit of a bonus if they go massively positive. If they go even, you're probably perfectly happy. And to enter a tournament, you're just going to go to the Discord chat and you're going to enter it in a certain fashion. I'll show you guys how to do that towards the end of the video. First, let me go over my thoughts and all of the corresponding information. And you can make roster changes up to the time that the event starts on the 15th. So if some information comes out, you can make a change. Just make sure you do it in a timely fashion. And yeah, at the end of the event, the participant with the team that scored the most points will win. And okay, so one more time, you go to the Discord and enter the stuff, but I'll show you that later. So here's an example, and I'll also show you my example, so don't worry about it too much yet. There is more information to be given. Okay, so this is extremely important. This is how points are doled out. So kills get you 10 points. Any player on your team gets a kill, you get 10 points. Deaths, minus 6 points. Opening kill, 5 points. Opening death, minus 2 points. So you'll notice deaths take away fewer points than kills actually get you, and it's an even more favorable ratio for entry. So deaths are 60% of what a kill is worth, and entry deaths are 40% of what an entry kill is worth. And then you also get 10 points for clutches, 10 points for plants. So with clutches and plants being the same value as a kill, it definitely makes me value them a little bit less. And ideally, if you are going to designate a support player, which you will do, it is nice to have a support player that will also put up a good number of frags, or at least won't go massively negative in terms of kills and deaths and whatnot. And then also there's stage points. This won't apply to the Berlin Major. It only has to do when there's upper brackets and whatnot, which there will not be at the event. So don't need to worry about this in this regard. And okay, so I'm going to go to the next tab, and we'll take a look at all of the players and the numbers, and I'll give you my thought process for selecting a team. Okay, so here I am on the second tab. This is going to have all of the information you really need to select your team. Up at the top here, there's going to be some more rule information. We already covered all of that, so we won't go over it again. And then here's going to be some stat tracking stuff. This doesn't matter up until the event actually starts, so don't worry about it for the time being. What we actually want to look at are the player costs. Okay, so there are 16 teams at the event, 4 from APAC, 4 from EU, 4 from LATAM, 4 from NA. There are 4 groups, A, B, C, and D, and each group has 1 of each seed and 1 team from each region. So there's no doubling up of the regions like there was at Charlotte. So okay, some things to really consider here. Do keep in mind what group any given team is in. If you think a player is going to do really well, but you still don't think their team is going to make it out of the group, I don't think you should feel inclined to pick that player, because if they don't make it out of the group, they're going to have much fewer opportunities to earn you points, because they are just going to have fewer matches played, fewer maps played, and thus fewer rounds played. So you just need kills, entry kills, clutches, and plants, and those all come from playing rounds, right? So, okay, all of the APAC teams I'm not super inclined to pick from, just don't have a ton of faith in the region at the moment. They are one of the weaker looking regions. It's unclear if it's them or EU at the moment, but historically the weakest region. And then EU, we'll have to see how they do. Still, again, looks like kind of a weak region, but I think Wolves in particular, and then maybe also even Rogue, seem like they have a lot of potential. And that leaves LATAM and NA. NA seemingly the best region based on TSM winning SI, and then Dark Zero winning Charlotte, as well as NA being by far the most dominant region at Charlotte, and so we'll see if their dominance continues. But I put the most stock certainly into the LATAM and NA team. So let's go over how I selected my team, and maybe that'll inform you maybe how you should pick your team. What I really favored is entry players in general. You only do one entry player by designation. You only pick one player to be your entry player, but I still think they're probably going to be the most valuable. Generally, entry players, well, obviously they get into a lot of entry engagements, and so you can get points there. You can also lose points there, but you do get more points for entry kills than you use for entry deaths. Generally, there are also players that get a lot of kills, and kills are just seemingly the most important metric, because a kill's worth 10 points, so are plants and clutches, but you're going to get way more kills than you're going to get plants or clutches. So that's what I really favored. So where did I start? I went with Grixer first off. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better player. Maybe you'd say Keys is the hottest player in the world at the moment, but Grixer, I think over the course of the last year and a half, has been the most consistently good. For my money, I think he's probably the best player in the world at the moment. And at $25 feels like a little bit of a steal. $25 is pretty expensive. That's already a quarter of your funds for only one of your 5 players, but still, I think the whole team might be slightly undercosted because of how poorly they did in Stage 1. But at their last international event, do remember that Grixer was the best player by a significant margin. That is my first pick. Next up, I went with Spirits. So this, I went with a little bit of a budget pick. So between the two, that's $41, slightly above average, but okay. Got to start somewhere. So Spirits has a tendency to get in a ton of entry engagements, more than most players. I imagine he has to be pretty high up there in terms of just the percentage of rounds in which he is involved in the entry engagement. He doesn't go that positive. He's usually about even, but he gets in so many. And for this reason, I decided to pick him up as sort of a budget pick. And I think I'm actually going to make him my entry player. And I think that's a little bit of a risky play. It's entirely possible they don't even make it out of their group. They do have a sort of a tough looking group, but also a very volatile looking one. So XSET have proven to be a very solid team, pretty high floor, but they haven't gone super deep yet. But again, also haven't been a team for that long. They also have to contend with NIP, who have won events, and they've got smoked in events. This is perhaps the most volatile team in the world. Sometimes they're at the top, sometimes they're at the bottom. They also have to play against Rogue, and Rogue certainly has that history. Maybe they're becoming more consistent now, but they, as an org in EU, have been on the top, they've been on the bottom, and they seem to be on a bit of a rise now, but it's not clear if their regional success is going to translate to international success. They also have to play against Damwon, who seem like the best team from APAC, but they did fall short at Gamers 8, so we'll have to see. I'm going to be very disappointed if XSET doesn't make it out of their group. That sort of does waste my entry designation, but it is what it is. Those are my first 2 picks. Next up, I have Forest. So very, very expensive, $28. One of the more expensive players out of all the players. The 2 most expensive are Keys at 32 and Newers at 31. They're the only players that cost more than 30, and for good reason. Their stats have been astronomical. And okay, I went with Forest, and I'm going with him as my support player. So of all support players in the world, he's probably the best fragger, or at least the one that gets involved in the most frag engagements and entry engagements and wins a lot of them. You'd maybe say him and Souls, and Bride maybe is up there. He's fallen off a little bit lately, but at this event, I'd say Souls and Forest. And I went with Forest. He gets a ton of kills, he gets a ton of entry kills, and he gets a ton of plants. And so I think he is worth every dollar here. I also think that Astralis is going to have a bigger target on their back than anyone at this event. They are the top seed from the best region, and they are the best performing team from Charlotte that made it to this event. So they got second place, but the first place team Dark Zero didn't make it here. So I think a pretty big target on their back, but I also think the weakest group. So Astralis feel like a shoo-in. They have to play against the likes of Eminem, of Elevate, and Furia. And so Furia go to all the events. They usually just don't do that well. I think Elevate, one of the biggest wildcards at this tournament. They were supposed to be at Charlotte, but they couldn't make it because of visa issues. And then Eminem, we'll see how well they do. They seem like a fairly high floor team, but I think it's unclear at the moment how high their ceiling is. I think their ceiling is pretty high. They just haven't been able to actualize on that potential just yet. That puts me already at $69. I only have 31 left for 2 players, so I do have to go with 2 cheaper ones. I went with Herds from W7M. Obviously JV and Keys and Volps, because they're much more expensive. They're sort of the more coveted players. Their stats have been much better. But Herds at only $16 really feels like a really good budget pick to me. He's one of their entry players, so as I mentioned before, I'm really favoring entry players. So he usually doesn't get absolutely blasted, just the other players on his team usually outperform him in terms of rating, but he gets quite a few kills. He gets quite a few entry kills, entry engagements. So I went with him, only half the cost of Keys, but again, I did sort of need a couple of budget players to round out my roster. So I went with him. That leaves me with $15, and so I went with Tyrant for my very last pick. So this one feels a little bit risky to me, maybe even more so than the Spirits pick, but I think Tyrant as a player has a very high ceiling. We've seen that in the past. I made a video a while back about him setting a kill record, so he can get the frags, even though he hasn't been doing so quite lately. Not very good in stage 2, okay in stage 1. Maybe I don't recall his performance at SI. He's definitely been outperformed by Solotov and especially uses as of late, but I think he has the potential to certainly turn up pretty massively and feels like a pretty solid pick at only $14. So that's my roster of players. Comes out to be $99. And so I'm going to switch over to the Discord server so I can input the information, and I'll show you guys how to do that. So let's head on over there. And so here we are on the Infamy Discord server. Once again, it will be linked below in the description, so just click on that and it should get you in the server. And then all you have to do, you navigate here just on the left hand side, you go down to where it says Fantasy R6, it'll take you to this. And as you can see, several people, including myself, have already submitted their team. And so you just put it in this format. You can probably do it in any order, but I just copied what the dude above me did. So I got my support player here, I have my entry player here, and then the other 5 players. So just the player name, dash, and then the cost of the player, and then if you give them entry or support, only 1 player on support, 1 player on entry, and then the total. And everyone else, I guess, did $100. They're being all fancy, but I couldn't muster up the strength. Mine is just a measly 99. So yeah, that's all you got to do. And then I think if you go up here, once they give you the little bit of the bot emote, I think that means that they've put you on the sheet. And so that's everything you need to do, everything you need to know. I do implore you to do this. I would really appreciate it. Generally I don't really ever ask you guys for things except for to like and to comment and subscribe, but I'm merely a mortal man. What can I do? But yeah, I would really appreciate it if you would do this, help me out. It doesn't actively help me out. It would just make me feel good to know that in them sponsoring me, I have actually helped them out. And okay, so I guess I'll just give you a little bit of a quick little summary. August 15th is the roster submission deadline. Today is the 10th of August. You only have 5 days. Make sure you get it in pretty quick. You can also make alterations if you need to up to that deadline. Infamy, they run free fantasy tournaments for Rainbow Six, for Valorant, and for Overwatch. Head to the Infamy Discord below in the description to join. And yeah, I think that does it. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, feel free to let me know. If it's something that I can't answer, I'll try to reach out to someone else to have it answered. I suppose you could also ask questions in the appropriate channel here on Discord if you feel so inclined. But okay, comment it below if you really want to. And all right, that's going to do it for this video. Catch you guys in the next one.